Shin Ultraman. Originally scheduled for wide release in the summer of 2021, the highly anticipated tokusatsu motion picture was unfortunately delayed by the COVID-19 pandemic. But now, the wait is finally over, and the Silver Giant will fly across Japan's silver screens on May 13, 2022. While much of the film's production and plot still remain shrouded in secrecy as of this video, there has still been some very cool information that has surfaced, including some very interesting info on Shin Ultraman's most iconic ultra power, the Spacium Beam, which we will be focusing on today. But before diving in, please subscribe to Monstrosities. It is absolutely through the support of viewers like you that allows us to continue to research and make videos like these. While the project that would become Shin Ultraman was reportedly in development before Shin Godzilla, that is according to a January 2022 interview with Ultraman lead actor Takumi Saito, it was undoubtedly the mainstream success of Shin Godzilla that dictated the direction of Tsuburaya Productions' newest Ultraman film, something that could attract a new audience while also maintaining a respect for classic Ultraman. It is important to have the audience understand the old works as they are. Tsuburaya CEO Takayuki Tsukagoshi said to Bunka Sushin magazine in 2019, "One way is to give them a new understanding of the works we have and have them enjoy them by making the best use of our assets." Tsukagoshi says this is why he requested the Shin Godzilla Dream Team of Shinji Higuchi and Hideaki Anno to head up the newest Ultraman project. Not only had these two proven that century-old tokusatsu franchises could still be retooled as modern marvels, see Shin Godzilla, but they also had history and deeply rooted respect for the Ultraman franchise. Higuchi had worked on the Los Angeles shot Ultraman Powered in the 90s, and Hideaki Anno's love for Ultraman is, at this point, the stuff of fandom legend, from having played the alien hero in his earliest amateur films to pulling shot references from the original 1966 show on the set of Shin Godzilla. "We wanted to make the first Ultraman again," Shin Ultraman director Shinji Higuchi explained in an interview with Bunshun.jp. "A kind of experiment in which Ultraman, created more than 50 years ago, would appear for the first time in a form appropriate for today's society." But modernizing the Silver Giant while keeping its 1960s sentiments was more difficult than Shin Godzilla, according to Higuchi. "There was a lot of friction because we had to take the worldview and characters of Ultraman 66 and put them in a modern society," Higuchi shared with MovieWalker.jp. "The drama of the first Ultraman is based on a very positive vision. There are various monsters and aliens, but Ultraman and each of the characters have a worldview that is not pessimistic." The desire to maintain a strong link to the original Ultraman also extended to the designs and characters, especially that of Shin Ultraman himself, who is based off of a painting titled Incarnation of Truth, Justice, and Beauty by Toru Narita, one of the original Ultraman character designers. "The aim is to reproduce what Mr. Narita wanted, which can only be done with current CG." A note from screenwriter Hideaki Anno reads about the Shin Ultraman design in the Hideaki Anno exhibition book. "Rebuilding that worldview in the present day could be challenging, but we did not feel the need to change that figure. We could find the design concept that we wanted only by returning to the original created by Toru Narita and mask designer Akira Sasaki." If Ultraman wasn't going to change much for modern audiences, neither would his iconic powers. Shin Ultraman Spacium Beam looks spectacularly like the original 1966 optical effect, and when an interviewer pointed this little fact out to director Higuchi, he let loose a cool fact that this was very much intentional. Sadao Iizuka, who was in charge of optical drawings for Ultraman, is still active enough to draw the rays for the Ultra series, Kamen Rider series, etc., Higuchi revealed. "So I asked him to take a chance on me, using the same method he used in the past. He is a stubborn old man who's a little bent out of shape," laughed Higuchi, "but he drew an amazing number of pictures." Sadao Iizuka, nicknamed Den-san, is an optical effects trailblazer and founder of special effects company Den Film Effects, which worked on many of Toei's Super Sentai and Space Sheriff shows in the 1980s. At 19 years old, he started working for Toho Studios as a part-time assistant in the art department of the original 1954 Godzilla, applying stained color to miniature buildings. 2 years later, Eiji Tsuburaya, whom Iizuka respectfully refers to as father in both interviews and his book, requested Iizuka work in the newly formed optical animation department. This is where Iizuka animated Godzilla's atomic breath, alien laser blasts, Ghidorah's erratic golden gravity beams, and countless other classic animations. In 1966, Iizuka was asked by Tsuburaya to do the optical effects for the upcoming Ultraman TV show. But there was a little problem. I was not allowed to work for Tsuburaya Productions publicly because I was not allowed to do work for other companies in my Toho contract, Iizuka recalled in his book The Man Who Continues to Draw Rays, Sadao Iizuka. However, according to Iizuka, he had no choice but to accept the job as he was the only person who had the experience necessary in the optical cinematography field. Toho knew I was working for Tsuburaya Productions, Iizuka said. So it was an open secret. If you asked who does Ultraman, everybody knew it was Den-chan. Iizuka's work schedule was, to say the least, relentless. As he would finish up a day's work at Toho, he would then head back to his rented apartment, a 6-mat room he lived in with his new wife, and his Tsuburaya workload would begin. At night, somebody from Tsuburaya would drop off a huge stack of Ken paper that had rough sketches in pencil so I would know where to draw, Iizuka told interviewer Brett Hominick. Iizuka would then get started drawing and painting on a self-made light table. There would even be occasions where his wife, Etsuko Iizuka, whom Eiji Tsuburaya himself was very fond of, would help with the work. There are 24 frames per second, so if a beam lasts 3 seconds, I had to draw 72 frames, Iizuka recalled to Hominick. Deadlines were extraordinarily tight, with Iizuka having to deliver the finished drawings 3 days before an episode would go to air. In the morning, the papers would either be picked up by a Tsuburaya staff member, or Iizuka himself would drop the work off at the studio. These would then be taken and burned onto 35mm film using an optical printer, which Iizuka says had limited availability, so that only made the work schedule even tighter. I stayed up every night and didn't sleep because nobody else was able to do this. I wanted to go out and have fun, but I couldn't, Iizuka laughed in his Hominick interview. In my line of work, we used to say, nighttime is not for sleeping. Ultraman's lasers and rays came about through a combination of collaborative discussion with the show's creatives and Iizuka's own creative initiative. For the Spacium Beam, Ultraman episode director Toshihiro Ujima said Ultraman would fire off the laser in a pose with his arms crossed in order to make Sadao Iizuka's job easier. There was no CG at that time, so if Ultraman moved unnecessarily, it'd be a big problem, Ujima confessed on episode 52 of Chico Will Scold You. On the design of the Spacium Beam, director Ujima also noted that a ray of a certain size was necessary, as a thin laser would look ridiculous as an offensive capability of a giant silver superhero trying to defeat monstrous foes. Sadao Iizuka agreed. Ultraman is a hero, so it had to be a strong beam. Iizuka told interviewer Brett Hominick that he lifted the design of the Spacium Ray from a previous beam he had worked on, but the effect actually worked very well for the heroic nature of Ultraman. On episode 52 of the Japanese TV show called Chico Will Scold You, Iizuka actually went into detail about the process of how he would draw the Spacium Beam. First, I put a layer of tracing paper on the rough sketch of Ultraman in the pose of the Spacium Beam and put a border on the paper. Then I put another layer of paper on top of the tracing paper and draw the rays of light one by one with a sign pen. When the drawing is finished, a new sheet of paper is piled up and more rays are drawn, slightly changing the length and position of the rays from the ones drawn earlier. The finished drawing of the Spacium Beam is overlaid on the Ultraman sketch like a flipbook, and the drawing is completed. This process is exactly how Iizuka created the Spacium Beam for Shin Ultraman. His Shin Ultraman drawings were recently displayed at the Hideaki Anno exhibition in Tokyo, Japan. So, Shin Ultraman Spacium Beam, for all intents and purposes, is the original 1966 Ultraman Spacium Beam, created by the same man, using the same methods, just given a contemporary tokusatsu facelift. On an editorial note, it is something really cool that we can now publicly recognize Sadao Iizuka's contributions to Ultraman, because at the time of the show's release, the sad fact was Iizuka could not be credited for his tireless labors, due to his Toho contract. Nobody knew who the father of the Spacium Beam was then, but upon reflecting on this, Iizuka really didn't seem to mind. It was more about having my creation being used, Iizuka admitted in his Hominick interview. That was most important. Please let me know in the comments below if you would like to see more Shin Ultraman videos like this one. This is not my usual territory, and I'm really not sure if I should continue to do more. Any input, positive or negative, would be very helpful. Also, a huge Ultraman-sized thanks needs to go out to Mr. Mott Dent of Vincention for lending his expertise and advice for this video. And also, I thank all of you guys for watching. Thank you so much, and we will see you soon.